Have you ever felt that your happiness depends heavily on other people? That when someone leaves, everything around them seems to lose its meaning? The truth is, the peace of mind you seek isn't found in the actions of others, but within yourself. Today you will discover why learning to live without dependence on others is the path to greater ease, direction, and true freedom. But before we begin, I'd like to know, what do you think it means to live for yourself? Post your answer in the comments. Let's get started. 1. Creating something with your own hands can bring about an inner calm, as if your soul were breathing more easily. There is ancient wisdom that lives quietly within us, and much of it is revealed when we use our hands with care and attention. They teach us to do things calmly and without haste, to enjoy the here and now. In a time when everything has to be fast and results-oriented, pausing to knead bread, peel vegetables, sew, draw, or write by hand is like finding a safe place. When we do something with our hands, our mind also changes. It stops racing so much. Our thoughts become calmer, and our hearts feel a certain relief. It's beautiful to touch things and see with our eyes how something transforms into what we are creating. The reason for this is not because what is being done is important to the world, but because it is true to you. And that is enough. Cutting a piece of fruit, painting a piece of paper, embroidering a flower, or caring for a plant are simple gestures, but they help us find inner balance. It's neither magic nor difficult. It's about simply being there, fully and completely, paying attention to each step without putting pressure on yourself. This kind of creation is pure and sincere, and therefore calming. These days it seems as if even our free time has to be shown or shared, as if everything has to be approved by someone. But when we do something with our hands, just for the sake of it, without showing it to anyone, without expecting praise, we find a secret place within ourselves, a space where we can be who we are, without rush, without pressure. Doing something just because we feel like it, just because we're missing a quieter moment, is a way of doing something for the soul. It doesn't have to be beautiful or right. You just have to be willing to do it. You can paint without knowing how to draw, braid thread without knowing where it will end, or play with clay simply because it feels good to feel the texture. This kind of freedom is disappearing from our lives. We live lives full of goals, obligations, and demands. But when we pick up scissors, a pencil, or a wooden spoon and let our hands guide us, it's as if we're leaving a room full of noise and entering one where peace reigns. Do it without expecting applause. Simply create for the joy of creating. In this movement, a truer version of our personality emerges. You don't have to have a gift. You just have to have the courage to try. Hands don't want to be perfect, they just want to be used. They want permission to make mistakes, to redo things, and to invent. How many times have we stopped doing something we enjoyed because we thought we weren't good enough? The fear of making mistakes has nipped many ideas in the bud. But when we put that fear aside and simply do something sincerely, we discover something that feels good. The important thing is not what you do, but the fact that you do it. How about trying it? Take 30 minutes to do a manual activity, without your phone, without distractions, without rushing. Touch the objects around you, let your fingers move. Feel your body become calmer and your mind lighter. It doesn't matter whether you're writing, embroidering, drawing, carefully washing dishes, or organizing something with care. Time passes differently. The anxiety subsides. And you begin to sense what was hidden, your true thoughts, your silent feelings, and your desire to pause for a while. Creating something with your hands is like meditation in motion, like saying a prayer without saying a word. No special place is required, simply a space where you can be with yourself. Here you can try something out, repeat it, have fun, or even get bored without guilt. In this simple contact with reality, something very special arises: peace. But it's not just any peace. It's a peace that slowly spreads throughout the body, like a pleasant sigh after a strenuous day. The oldest remedies for modern pain lie in the small tasks of everyday life. You don't have to travel or search for answers in books or social media. Sometimes you just sit down and peel a potato in peace. There's profound wisdom in these leisurely gestures. You don't have to understand everything or solve everything. Simply engaging with your hands can be a relief for the soul. We are always on the run and always searching, but every now and then the answer lies in a quiet afternoon, in a task that serves no other purpose than to calm you down. And that is already a lot. Creating with your hands is a way of saying to the world, "Today I am not in a hurry. Today I just want to be present." And in that moment you find yourself again. You listen to yourself. You heal yourself. Because when the hands move mindfully, the soul finally finds peace. And maybe that alone is all we need. 2. Learning to be okay without understanding everything. Not everything that hurts you makes sense. Not every pain comes with an instruction manual. And yet most of us insist on constantly trying to understand everything, as if explanations are the only path to peace. When something bad happens, you immediately ask yourself, why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong? What did I miss? The need to understand becomes a prison disguised as a desire for control. But what if liberation comes precisely when you accept that you don't have to understand everything? We live in a time where everything needs logic, a name, a diagnosis, and an explanation. But real life, pulsing with silence, disagreements, and misinterpreted gestures, rarely fits into a theory. And this is precisely why many suffer more than necessary. They try to find reason where there are only feelings. They want to rationalize grief, decipher abandonment, map a void. But there are things for which there are no clear answers. And that's okay. Have you ever paused and realized how hard your mind tries to close loops on its own, even when your heart is still bleeding? It's as if a superior inside you is telling you that you can only move on when you fully understand what happened. The truth is, though, that healing doesn't depend on logic. It's acceptance. Sometimes healing doesn't come when you understand, but when you stop trying to understand. Accepting that something was unfair, unexplainable, or unfinished is one of the hardest and most mature ways to move on. It means saying to yourself, even without knowing why, I choose to no longer carry this. And that doesn't mean giving up. It's wisdom, because life requires humility before mystery. It requires trusting that life knows things you don't yet know. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why must face every how." But what if the why never comes? Stoicism, on the other hand, teaches us that we must act virtuously, even when there are no answers. Seneca said, "Accept what is given to you and follow it consistently, because what ultimately weakens you is not what happened, but the idea that you should have understood everything." The mind likes control. The heart likes meaning. But the soul simply wants peace, and peace doesn't come from explanations, it comes from delivery. When you stop demanding things from life that it doesn't give you, complete justifications, sweet endings, linear explanations, you begin to live more carefree. The pain may still be there, but it no longer paralyzes you. Try this. Whenever your mind is running in circles, searching for answers you can't think of, close your eyes and silently say to yourself, I don't have to understand it right now. I just need to feel it. Breathe. Touch the ground with your feet. Feel your body. Come back to the present. You don't have to resolve anything right now. Wounds don't always heal through fighting. Sometimes it's time spent in silence that heals best. It can be helpful to create a ritual of acceptance. It could be writing a letter to the unexplainable and burning it, or simply sit quietly and say to yourself, I don't understand, but I let go. I don't understand, but I accept. Create a moment of pause without the pressure to reach a conclusion, because this space of not knowing, when welcomed, becomes a refuge for the soul. There are pains that open space and don't provide an answer. There are endings that don't make sense now, but that one day will quietly show you that you really needed to let them go. And when that day comes, you'll realize that understanding, if it comes, is just a bonus. True peace arises even when nothing makes sense. Learning to cope without understanding everything is an act of humility in the face of life. It's a show of trust in the passage of time. And above all, it's a gesture of self-love. Because you realize that your well-being cannot depend on logic, approval, or explanations that may never come. Your well-being is a choice, and sometimes that choice begins with a simple, even if I don't understand, I follow. 3. Change the way you talk to yourself. There's a voice in your head that no one hears, but it's always with you. It talks all the time, even when everything is quiet. It's about how you treat yourself internally. Sometimes this voice is calm and kind, but often it's harsh, angry, and demands too much. The strangest thing is that this voice, which should be your ally, often seems to be the most rigid. Even if the mistake was small, like forgetting your keys or being a little late, this voice often repeats that you failed, that you didn't do it right, that you should have done better. And it says this over and over again, without any sweetness, as if it were a punishment. If someone spoke to you like that, you would turn away from that person. But because this voice comes from within us, we get used to it, as if it were an annoying noise we can't turn off. When you demand more of yourself, you can grow, strive for improvement, and achieve your dreams. But there's a limit. When the demands become too high, it starts to hurt, and that becomes exhausting. Because demanding affection from yourself is different than treating yourself as if you're never good enough. Look how strange. We are kind to others. If a friend is late and sad, we tell them it's okay to rest, that everyone has difficult days. When someone makes a mistake, we remember that no one is perfect, and everyone learns from their mistakes. But when we are the ones who fail, compassion disappears. Our voice changes and becomes harsher. We talk about ourselves in ways we would never talk to the people we love. It may seem normal to treat ourselves more harshly than others, but it changes the way we see ourselves. It affects our self-confidence. Now imagine a different scene. What if your life was narrated by a kind person rather than that critical voice? Imagine a gentle narrator like Morgan Freeman telling you about his day. Today, even though you were tired and had 1,000 thoughts racing through your head, you forgot your keys. But that's okay. You're human. You're doing your best. And you bravely carry on. Doesn't it sound better that way? The way you talk to yourself is very important. Not only for your heart, but also for your body. Negative words make us tense and drained of energy. When the inner voice says, "You're a disaster," your body senses it. You begin to doubt yourself, not because you're weak, but because no one grows up with constant criticism. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who was also a philosopher, said something very wise. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. He wasn't talking about success or fame. He was talking about thoughts, because those influence our lives the most. It's not just what happens that matters, but how you understand it. And that kind of understanding begins with the voice inside you. Changing that voice isn't as easy as flipping a switch, but it is possible. One way is to talk to yourself in front of the mirror as if it were your best friend. It may seem strange at first, but it helps a lot. Look at yourself and say something like, "It's okay, you're trying. Today wasn't great, but it's okay, tomorrow will be better." Speak kindly, speak lightly, repeat the process until you get used to it. Another exercise is to imagine that your life story is being told by someone you love. It could be your grandmother, a wise person, or even the narrator of a movie. When something goes wrong, consider how the person would say it. Perhaps they would say, "You forgot the milk again." But that's okay, your head is full. That just shows how human you are. Remember, criticism is different from caring. Charging yourself with love is one thing. Too much criticism is another. Loving demands come from someone who wants you to be well. Harsh criticism stems from fear, and living in fear only exhausts us, makes us feel smaller, and distances us from what we need most: self-love, patience, and calm. Changing that voice doesn't mean you stop growing. It means treating yourself the way you would treat the person you love. It means being a safe place for yourself, not a battleground. Sometimes laughter helps. Forgetting something at the grocery store isn't a disaster. It's just another ordinary moment in life, full of little mistakes, but also full of beauty. Don't talk to yourself as if you were your enemy. Talk to him as if he were your friend, as someone who deserves affection even when everything seems to be going wrong. Because ultimately, that voice will be with you forever. and you can choose to let it build you up instead of tear you down. If this is your first time here, please help me out by liking and subscribing to the channel. This way, I can continue creating content like this for you. 4. Learn to talk to yourself. Have you ever noticed that the person who criticizes you the most sometimes lives inside your own head? That voice that doubts your decisions, constantly reminds you of your mistakes, and seems to enjoy unsettling your thoughts. It's funny because we spend a lot of time talking to other people, but almost never pay attention to how we talk to ourselves. And that's actually the most important conversation of all. It has nothing to do with being weird or out of touch with reality. It's about training your thoughts and learning to pay attention to the voice that speaks within you. Instead of allowing it to stand in your way, you can make it your partner. Great thinkers and scholars have already recognized the power of this inner dialogue. It's not just a random thought. It's something that influences the way you live and how you deal with difficult situations. Today, I want to show you how self-talk can change your life. That's right, talk to yourself. This isn't crazy, nor is it similar to those movie characters who talk to themselves on the street with exaggerated gestures. In fact, it's a very valuable tool that can help you a lot. Many people have been taught that this way of speaking is strange or wrong, but that's not true. I'm not suggesting you talk to yourself loudly and scare others. My suggestion is that you become your own counselor, someone who listens, supports, and guides you with care. Let's face it, if you don't learn to treat yourself well, your inner voice can become very harsh and critical. And when that happens, there's no reason for other people to hurt you, because your own mind is already doing that. Let me tell you a story. Javier was a young man working at a large company who constantly struggled with his emotions. Every day he woke up with a heavy heart, afraid of displeasing his colleagues and superiors. At work, he felt like everything he did was carefully judged. When he presented a project, many questions ran through his mind like, was it good enough? What if they don't like it? The meetings were even worse. Any criticism, even the smallest, made him feel like he was being attacked from all sides and made him sad and tired. Over time, this pressure left him exhausted, as if his energy was slowly draining. One night, after a hard day, he was alone in the office. He looked at his reflection in the window, took a deep breath, and did something he'd never done before. He started talking to himself. "Why do you care so much about what other people think?" Srenya asked in a calm voice. "Don't you trust your efforts? Weren't you the one who came here with so much work?" At that moment, it seemed as if a fog lifted from Javier's mind. For the first time, he realized that the biggest criticism came from himself. It was time to change the way I spoke to myself. Without realizing it, Javier took an important step that night. Stoic thinkers have long spoken about this. One of them, Epictetus, said that it's not events that cause us pain, but what we think about them. He taught that what matters most is how we talk to ourselves about what's happening. If you constantly criticize yourself and constantly distrust yourself, you'll never find peace. But if you treat yourself calmly, forgive yourself, and accept that mistakes are part of life, everything begins to change. Marcus Aurelius, another ancient sage, did something special every day. When he woke up, he remembered that he faced difficulties, complicated people, and uncertain situations. But instead of being afraid, he calmly talked to himself and mentally prepared himself for whatever was to come. He showed us that positive self-talk is like training for the mind and a way to avoid becoming dependent on the opinions of others. Science also agrees. Dr. Kristen Neff has discovered that people who treat themselves with kindness and patience tend to deal with problems better and experience less anxiety. Her studies have shown that kind self-talk helps the body calm down and clear the mind. So how can you get started? First, pay attention to what you say to yourself. When you make a mistake, don't say, "I'm terrible." Try saying something more understanding, like, "It's okay to err as human, I can learn from this." Then imagine you're talking to a good friend. What words would you use to cheer them up? Use the same words for yourself. Take a few minutes each day to reflect in silence or talk quietly to yourself and motivate yourself for the day. This habit, even if it's simple, can transform how you feel. Learning to talk to yourself is an essential step on the path to emotional balance. When you take care of yourself, you no longer depend on the approval of others, because ultimately, the most important conversation in your life is the one you have with yourself. The way you treat yourself defines your reality. If you're too hard on yourself, if you constantly compare yourself or judge yourself, your life will always seem difficult. But if you listen carefully to yourself, motivate yourself, and treat yourself with respect, something will change inside you. Don't expect the world to treat you kindly if you don't start it yourself. So the next time bad thoughts come to you, stop them. Breathe deeply. Talk to yourself as if you were talking to someone you love very much. Because ultimately, the most powerful voice in your life isn't the one that comes from outside. It's what lives inside you. 5. Learn to slow down without guilt. There is a kind of tiredness that cannot be cured by sleep. It is the weariness of the soul, overwhelmed by the rhythm of the world, a silent exhaustion that manifests not as fever, but as mental confusion, loss of luster in the eyes, and a seemingly causeless irritability. Modern life has become a marathon without a finish line, and more people are running without knowing why. Slowing down has become a subversive act. In a world where productivity is a symbol of value, quitting seems like laziness. Breathing slowly seems like a waste. And living slowly has become almost an emotional heresy. Yet few realize that constant haste becomes an invisible prison, and the blame lies with its keeper. We feel guilty about resting, about doing nothing, about not responding to messages in a timely manner, about saying, "I can't right now." We become slaves to the urgency of others, the noise of notifications, and the illusion that everything must be done, already as if slowing down was a sign of failure rather than wisdom. Epictetus, one of the great teachers of Stoicism, said, "Wealth consists not in having many possessions, but in having few needs." And this also applies to time. The true luxury today is not having a full schedule, but having space to breathe between commitments. True power lies not in doing more, but in doing what matters most with presence. When you slow down, you hear what the noise prevents you from hearing. You become aware of how much you've been acting automatically, how much you've been responding without thinking, how much you've been acting without feeling, how much you've been living without realizing it. In this slowed silence, consciousness awakens, and with it comes clarity about what's truly important. But the process of slowing down requires courage, because slowing down means detaching yourself from external expectations. It's about saying, "Not today," without justifying yourself. It's about choosing peace, even if it seems unproductive, and that goes against everything we've learned about self-esteem. A useful Stoic exercise here is premeditatio malorum, imagining what would happen if you weren't always available, and the answer is almost always nothing serious. The world keeps turning, the news keeps coming, and the people who really matter get it. What does this show? That your constant presence isn't as important as you think, and that's liberating. Try creating slow-down rituals. It could be a 20-minute break in the middle of the day where you do nothing. A long bath without your phone. An afternoon without answering anyone. A night where you allow yourself to be useless. These moments aren't a waste of time. They're an investment in your mental health, in your presence, in yourself. In that moment of pause, clarity arises. Seneca said, "Hurry to live well and remember that each day is a life in itself." When you slow down, you begin to live like this, with intention, with delivery. With the awareness that your energy is not infinite, and that the richest life is measured not by speed but by depth. And if you feel guilty about slowing down, look it in the eye and say, "I am not a machine. You were not born to answer everything, to deliver everything, to solve everything. You came to life, and life also includes pausing, boredom included. It includes silence. Because true growth doesn't only happen through success, it also happens in the spaces in between. Slowing down without guilt is an act of reconciliation with your inner rhythm. It's about stepping out of the noise of should and into the space of enough is enough. It means accepting that not everything needs to be done today, that your mental health can't be the currency you trade for productivity, and that your worth lies not in the quantity of tasks completed, but in the quality of your presence. Ultimately, life is a fertile field, but the land also needs rest between harvests. If nature, so wisely, rests in cycles, why shouldn't you too? The world keeps turning, but you don't have to keep turning with it. Slowing down is perhaps the most revolutionary act of those who refuse to live in survival mode. And when you learn to do so guilt-free, something blossoms within you, a calm that doesn't ask for permission, a presence that requires no explanation, a freedom that begins where the rush ends. 6. Are you living, or are you just trying to fit in? Some questions don't have to be long to move us. This is one of them. Are you really living life, or are you just trying to fit in? The difference may seem small, but inside it's very big. At first, it even seems easier to fit in. You try to be smaller and more invisible, just so as not to bother anyone. It changes the way you speak, the way you act, even what you think. Look around and imitate others, because being different can attract attention, and you know that can bring difficulties, so you decide to fit in, even if a part of you starts to fade. Fitting in comes at a price, but it isn't money. You pay with silence, with abandoned dreams, and with those few moments when you betray yourself. This seems insignificant, but it leaves traces you can't see, only feel. You laugh when you don't want to. You say yes when you want to say no. You go places your heart no longer wants to go. And all of this just to avoid being labeled weird, different, or complicated. But when you try to be accepted by everyone, you gradually drift away from your true self. We aren't born knowing who we are. You discover it gradually. Yet often we look outward rather than inward for fear of being rejected, judged, or pushed aside. Rafa Guerrero explains it well. When we're not clear about who we are, we begin to imitate what we see because we think that's how we should be. Your inner bearings are lost. You no longer know whether what you're doing comes from the heart or from a desire to please. Then you lose your balance. You live to be recognized, to be accepted, to belong somewhere. This way of life, even if it appears tranquil, is a well-disguised form of imprisonment. And then comes the thought of Epictetus, an ancient philosopher. He spoke not only from wisdom but also from experience. He understood what many outwardly free people have not yet realized. True freedom comes from within. He said, "If you want to be free, desire nothing that is beyond your control." It sounds simple, but it is very powerful. Much of our sadness stems from the effort to please others, from the desire to be liked, from the assumption that we are only worth something if others recognize us. But in all this effort, you give up on yourself. You lose control of your own life. We've all been there. It may be something very simple, but it says a lot. Imagine a Friday. You're tired, you just want to lie down, read a little, or go to bed early. But someone sends a message, "Are you going out today?" Instead of listening to your body, your desires, and your tiredness, you feel like you have to be there. Get ready, go out, smile without desire. It's in its place, but its head is far away. That's not life, it just fits in. Living a real life doesn't require major changes. There's no need to give up everything, move to another city, or cut ties. Sometimes it all starts within ourselves. Instead of worrying about what others think, perhaps the right question is, what will I think of myself today? This question may be difficult, but it's a serious one. Because at the end of the day, when you're alone with yourself, other people's opinions lose their meaning. What really matters is how you see yourself. It's a good idea to reflect on the decisions you've made recently. How many were made just to please? How many were there out of fear of being excluded? And how many came from the heart, even if they differed from others' expectations? It's not about blaming yourself, but about recognizing what's going on. Because only when we recognize it can we change. Changing doesn't mean becoming a rebel for no reason. It's not about going against others. It's about influencing yourself positively. Sometimes a simple no is an important step. Not today. I don't want to. That's not for me. And realize that the world won't end because of it. that true friendships endure despite some differences. You don't always have to please everyone to be liked. True life isn't about rebelling against the rules for the sake of it. It's about listening to your feelings and respecting yourself. It's about acting from the truth and making decisions with sincerity, not out of fear or anxiety. This may seem insignificant, but it is essential. It is what distinguishes a life lived from a life felt. It is not always possible to avoid all the moments when we need to belong. We live in a group, and sometimes that is necessary. However, this must not become your primary way of life. For you were not born to be a copy. You have become yourself in your unique way with your light, and the path to true life begins at this point, when you decide, even if only in your thoughts, to return to yourself. Even if your voice is quiet, even if you're afraid, even if no one else understands you, because you do, and that's enough. 7. Let go of what no longer makes sense to carry around. One day, 2 Buddhist monks were walking along a dirt road after a heavy rain. In the distance, they saw a well-groomed woman standing in front of a muddy puddle. She didn't know how to cross the border without soiling her clothes. The older monk went to her, took her in his arms and carried her to the other side. She nodded her thanks and left. The monks continued walking, but the youngest remained silent and seemed embarrassed. Hours later, near the monastery, he could hold it back no longer and asked, "Brother, we shouldn't avoid contact with women. Why did you help her so much?" The older monk answered calmly, "I left it back there. Are you still bringing it?" We often do the same thing as the younger monk. We continue to think about situations that are already over, but still weigh on our minds. An argument, a hurtful word, a mistake we made, or something someone did to us. All of this becomes an invisible burden we carry within us. No one sees it, but we feel it. It tires us, confuses us, and gets in our way. Letting go of these things isn't easy. Sometimes the pain becomes a part of us, like a scar we touch from time to time, just to remind ourselves it's there. The familiar offers a kind of comfort, even if it hurts. Often we prefer to stay in that place of pain because we know how it works, rather than make room for something new. Being trapped in these memories is like forgetting to take care of yourself. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting, but rather giving that thing a new place within us. The past alone doesn't hurt. What hurts is not being able to let it go its way. The mind always returns to the same thoughts, like a song that repeats the saddest part over and over again. We relive these memories not because they help us, but because we've become accustomed to them. And without realizing it, we start to think, that's who we are. But we are not the pain we've experienced or the mistakes we've made. We are the ones who can decide what continues and what can be left behind. Seneca said something important about this. Many things seem difficult because we haven't yet had the courage to do what needs to be done. Letting go is not a sign of weakness, but a courageous gesture. To do this, you have to look at the pain, understand what it reveals, and then let it go. Not pretend it never happened, but leave it in the past where it belongs. The burden of emotions can be heavier than any backpack. The body may even be resting, but the mind clings to what it should let go of. So pause for a moment and consider, what am I carrying around that no longer serves me? What memory or thought is taking up a space that could be filled with peace and joy? A very good way to do this is to write. Take a piece of paper and write down everything that's bothering you. Write about the pain, about the person who hurt you, about someone who's no longer here. Then tear it up, burn it, or let the paper fly away in the wind. This simple gesture helps the heart understand that it's okay to let go. It's not erased from memory, it's an easier way to remember. Another helpful option is to change the type of questions you ask yourself. Instead of saying, well, why can't I let this go? Try thinking, what would I gain if I could let this go? And the answer can be beautiful. Peace, more energy, more courage, more space to experience new things. Letting go is not losing. Letting go means becoming whole again. 8. Become the presence you seek in others. There's a kind of presence that calms you simply by its arrival. One who doesn't talk much but offers reassurance. It doesn't solve your problems, but it reminds you that you're not alone. A presence that doesn't judge, doesn't compare, doesn't compete. Simply welcome. We've all missed that. Someone who looks us in the eye and says without words, "I'm here." From a company that doesn't charge fees, doesn't intrude and doesn't speed. A presence that offers protection rather than a stage. More silence than response. More listening than expressing an opinion. But what if, instead of continuing to expect it from others, you decided to become that presence yourself? What if you cultivated within yourself the kind of energy you want to find in the world? The search for deep connections is human. We want to be seen, understood, and welcomed. The problem arises when this search turns into emotional dependency, and we shift the burden of overcoming our loneliness, validating our choices, and filling our emptiness onto others. This creates a vicious cycle of needs that exhausts, distances, and wears you down. Epictetus wrote, "Do you want to be invincible? Then don't enter competitions where you don't have to win. Expecting others to always be what you need is unfair competition, with them and with yourself. Because you'll always lose, always wait, and always be frustrated. The turning point comes when you take responsibility for having the presence you want around you, not as an obligation, but as a gesture of emotional maturity and autonomy. Take care of the world you help create. Being this presence begins in silence, in the ability to listen without interrupting, listening without preparing the next response, looking at someone and not trying to change them, but simply understanding them. It also begins with the way you treat yourself, with kindness, with space, with patience. Because those who have learned to be a home for themselves don't also demand a home in the hearts of others. Seneca said, "If you know where you are going, every wind will be favorable." A good presence requires clarity. Clarity about what's important to you, what you're no longer accepting, what you're desperate to offer, even when no one's watching, because your energy precedes your words. Your gaze speaks before your words, your calmness before your argument is noticed. Having such a presence doesn't mean being perfect, always calm, or available to everyone. It means being whole, and wholeness isn't the absence of flaws, but the presence of intention. It means being someone who doesn't drain but nurtures. That doesn't weigh down, but supports. That doesn't manipulate, but liberates. You can start small. Choose someone for whom you will be that presence today. Maybe it's listening more attentively. Maybe it's not responding immediately, but only after taking a breath. Maybe it's saying no firmly and lovingly, or simply being there with your body, your listening, your heart. Create rituals to support this. It can be a daily reminder. Today I want to be what I want to find. Or a moment of silence before every important conversation in which you take a deep breath and ask yourself, what does this person need from me now? Presence or haste, acceptance or opposition? And if you make a mistake, and it happens to everyone, start over. Don't expect it to always be easy, but commit to not being another shadow on the path of those who are already tired. Sometimes that presence simply means not disturbing the other person's silence. It's about respecting time. It's not an intrusion into the sacred space of those in this process. Stoicism reminds us that the greatest influence comes from example. Marco Aurelio wrote, "The best revenge is to be different from what hurt you. Likewise, the best cure for the lack of true presence in others is to be that presence in the world, even if no one asks, even if no one recognizes, even if no one responds, because ultimately, such presence first changes you. You begin to listen to yourself more. Respect your boundaries. Treat yourself with more dignity, and little by little life begins to respond with the same tone you emit. Don't wait any longer. Don't beg. Listen. Don't beg for space. Become that space. Become the listener. Become the kind of presence you've always been looking for, and that you can now finally find within yourself. New. The secret of freedom lies in independence. For a long time, people feared being alone, as if it was something terrible, an emptiness that must be filled at all costs. We are learning that being alone is a sign that we are missing something, that silence is frightening, and that any company is better than being alone. But what if all this was mistold? What if solitude was actually a new place, full of good things? We live in a world that pushes us to constantly be with other people. Therefore, learning to be alone can be an act of courage and discovery. True freedom lies in self-reliance. Being self-sufficient means being able to live without depending on the approval of others, without relying on the outside world for happiness, and without waiting for someone to push us forward. It's a mindset built through effort, dedication, and self-confidence. Since childhood, we hear that we must please others, that we must meet their expectations, and that we must chase praise. But living a life where we seek the approval of others is a trap. When our feelings about ourselves depend on the opinions of others, we become vulnerable to criticism, expectations, and rejection. True self-reliance begins when we understand that our worth is not in the hands of others. You are not worth more or less based on the opinions of others. You are enough simply by existing, thinking, and owning your own life. A very important aspect of self-reliance is taking good care of your money. If we don't know how to use and preserve what we have, we end up doing things we don't like, getting into difficult situations out of fear of losing our security, or living a life of worry. True freedom begins when we learn to manage our money wisely, when we stop depending on others for our survival and make choices that lead to a more peaceful life. It's not about saving simply for the sake of money, but about building a solid foundation on which we can rely with confidence. But self-reliance means more than just money. It's also about knowing how to handle everyday things, knowing how to cook, fix things that break, organize our time, and use our resources wisely are attitudes that make us stronger. When we depend on others for all our basic needs, we risk being in constant need. When we learn to do more for ourselves, we gain security and self-confidence. We can't wait for others to propel us forward. Self-sufficiency means being our own fuel, and knowing how to awaken the will within us without needing applause or gifts. True will comes from the heart, from our desires for our lives, and from our commitment to our own growth. No one will come to our rescue. When we fall, we must learn to get back up ourselves. We must find within ourselves the reason to keep going, even on difficult days. Physical and mental well-being are also part of this. We cannot leave the task of taking care of ourselves, motivating ourselves, or making sure we are well in the hands of others. True self-care requires us to take care of our health, eat what's truly good for us, and strengthen our minds to overcome challenges. Taking care of ourselves is a way to show respect for who we are. When we treat ourselves well, we prove that we're worthy of attention, energy, and effort. By becoming self-sufficient, we gain a freedom that no one can take away from us. Living with less is also a way to be self-sufficient. The more things we think we need, the more trapped we become. The world teaches us that happiness means having a lot of things, but the truth is, when we need less, we live more easily. It's not about not having good things, but about finding out what's truly important. When we understand that happiness isn't found in material things, we free ourselves from the idea that we need to own things to be happy. True freedom comes from who we are, not what we have. No one can take away what we've learned, what experiences we've had, what discipline we've developed, or what inner peace we feel. Self-sufficiency doesn't mean living in isolation. It's the knowledge that we can live safely and fulfillingly without being dependent on external influences. When we understand that freedom isn't about getting somewhere, but a way of life, we realize that this freedom has always been there, close to us. It's about taking control, building a strong life, and realizing how powerful we are when we stop waiting for others and start taking action ourselves. The key is to be self-sufficient, and freedom is the gift. Being alone is not a punishment, nor is it a bad thing. It's a time when we can truly get to know ourselves without having to pretend, without following the wishes of others, without trying to fit in. When we stop being afraid of loneliness, we realize that there is no greater freedom than feeling complete in our own presence. Solitude becomes an art, a safe place where the mind can grow, emotions calm, and the true self emerges without fear. Embracing loneliness isn't about running away from the world, but about learning to live within it in a true way. Being strong within is a journey toward balance and freedom, without needing others to tell us who we are or how we should be. Many people spend their lives trying to please others and building their identity based on others' opinions, not realizing that this makes them fragile. Being strong inside doesn't mean shutting yourself off from everyone, but rather building strong self-confidence and self-love. This involves truly getting to know yourself, understanding how you feel, and learning to cope with it without depending on others. Looking inward is a very helpful method for this. When we observe our feelings honestly and courageously, we can recognize the spaces we try to fill in the company of others. Practices such as meditation, writing down our feelings, and paying attention to our emotions help us strengthen our inner selves. When we begin to enjoy our own presence and support ourselves, we no longer expect from others something that only we can provide. But independence doesn't just mean taking care of the emotional side. Independent thinking is also very important. By learning and acquiring knowledge, we can make good decisions without relying on the opinions of others. Given the abundance of information available today, it's great to have a curious mind that enjoys independent learning and thoughtful reflection. Those who can learn independently, solve problems, and adapt to change will never fall into the trap of not knowing something or following the opinions of others. However, being independent doesn't mean always doing everything yourself. Being strong enough to face life's challenges also means not being afraid to ask for help when needed. True strength means getting back up after every fall and learning from every challenge. There's nothing wrong with accepting support from others, but it's important not to crumble when that support isn't forthcoming. When we learn to trust in our own strength, we realize that bad times pass and that there is always a way forward. Living with less also teaches us to be freer. In a world where shopping places so much emphasis, knowing how to part with what isn't necessary is a path to freedom. When we need fewer things, we are no longer dependent on possessions and the expectations others place on us. True wealth lies in a simple and peaceful way of life. Nature teaches us much about this. Learning to grow our own food, manage water, and do things with our own hands gives us a freedom that modern life often denies us. Being close to nature shows us that we are part of something greater and that we can live without being so dependent on our surroundings. Returning to basics gives us a sense of control and inner strength that we can't find in the comfort of cities. However, we must be careful not to confuse independence with pride. Sometimes the fear of being left out or the desire to appear strong leads us to distance ourselves from others. This can become a mistake when we think we don't need anyone, when in reality, we're running away from ourselves. To be truly independent, you have to find a balance. Knowing when to seek support is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. When we are truly self-sufficient, we choose who we want to be with out of desire, not necessity. And it's important to remember that this independence doesn't appear suddenly. It's a path built little by little. Every decision we make brings us closer to that goal, whether it's learning something new or taking better care of ourselves. The secret is to keep trying and to maintain the daily commitment to strengthening our inner freedom without ceasing to be human. Being self-reliant doesn't mean walking alone, but rather walking with the certainty that, no matter what happens, we can stand firm in our own strength. 10. Learning to be alone can be a beautiful thing. For a long time, people believed that being alone was a bad thing. They thought loneliness was like a boring shadow or a hole that needed to be filled in any way possible. Many people have learned that being alone is a sign that something is missing, that silence can be bad, and that even company that isn't good for you is better than being alone. But is all of this really true? What if being alone wasn't scary, but instead a place full of good things to discover? In a world where everyone is constantly talking, seeing people, and doing something, learning to be alone can be a courageous way to get to know yourself better. Many people think that loneliness is associated with sadness, abandonment, or a lack of love. But what if it's actually an opportunity for growth? What if we could learn to embrace this moment as part of our journey instead of fighting it? The first step is to stop viewing loneliness as a problem. These days, almost everyone is constantly online. Therefore, many people think that being alone means being distant or forgotten. But loneliness isn't an empty hole. It can be a quiet place where we can truly listen to our feelings without distractions and without having to please anyone. It's time to pause and listen to our inner voice, to that quiet voice that sometimes gets lost in the noise around us. Great thinkers and artists discovered this. When they were alone, they had important ideas. Painters, writers, and philosophers found inspiration in silence. People like Leonardo da Vinci, Nietzsche, Virginia Woolf, and Thoreau used these moments to create and reflect. True strength lies not in escaping loneliness, but in transforming it into a creative moment full of questions and discoveries. Being alone not only helps you imagine new things, but it's also an opportunity to learn to like yourself more. When we can enjoy our own company, we don't have to constantly rely on the opinions of others. We understand that we don't need anyone to complete us, because peace can come from within. When we manage to reach this point, we experience a different kind of freedom. The freedom to choose the company of another person out of desire, not out of fear of being alone. Silence is very important on this path. The world is full of noise and news, and this can confuse our thoughts. When we are alone, we can breathe deeply and allow our minds to calm down. It is during this time that good ideas usually come to us because we are no longer distracted by the outside world. Solitude helps us organize our thoughts, understand our feelings, and find answers that previously seemed hidden. Traveling alone, for example, is a special opportunity to realize how much being alone can teach us. With no one at our side, all our decisions are made by ourselves. Discoveries and even challenges become a way of speaking to our inner selves. In this way, we begin to see the world with our own eyes, without anyone telling us how to think. And in this search, we ultimately learn more about who we are. There's no better way to understand yourself than to experience something new with an open heart, even if you're alone. There's a joy in spending time in your own presence, and it's something you learn slowly. It can start with simple things like quietly reading a book, taking a walk without a destination, or looking up at the sky without having to take a photo or tell anyone. These moments show that being alone can be good, not sad. By developing habits that serve you well during this time, you can transform solitude into a place of affection. This might include writing each morning while enjoying a warm drink, going outside and watching the sunset, cooking a delicious meal just for yourself, or meditating in silence before bed. These gestures aren't meant to kill time, but rather to show that our presence is already valuable. Over time, being alone no longer feels empty, but becomes a meaningful moment. Loneliness is not a flaw to be corrected. It's an opportunity to grow internally, to have new ideas, to find balance, and to get to know yourself better. Knowing how to be alone is a gift that brings greater freedom, truth, and wholeness. We don't have to see loneliness as something bad. We can see it as something beautiful. Being alone doesn't mean that something is missing. It means that we connect with the world in a different way. And when we stop being afraid of it, we discover that we already have everything we need within us. Thus, loneliness becomes an art, a place where thoughts unfold, feelings calm, and our essence emerges more clearly. 11. Forgiving isn't something you do only to others. It's something you do for yourself. Sometimes certain pains linger inside, as if they were visitors that never left. They may be quiet for a while, but suddenly they come back with a vengeance, just because of a song, a smell, or a word. These pains aren't just memories, they're like chains that bind you. And over time, we come to accept that they're part of our story, but it doesn't have to be that way. There is a way to leave that burden behind. Forgiveness. But forgiveness is for you, not for the other person. Constantly thinking about who hurt you is like being trapped in a sad movie waiting for a different ending. But the ending is always the same. And in the end, you're the one who suffers the most. Holding a grudge isn't fair. It's like drinking something bad and thinking the other person is getting sick. But the one who feels all of that is you. When you remember the words that hurt you and the attitudes that hurt you, it's as if you're giving more power to those who hurt you. And the worst part is, That person often doesn't even think about you anymore. As long as you carry the burden of pain, life goes on, and you remain stuck in feelings that no longer need to be there. Forgiving doesn't mean that what happened was right. It doesn't mean you'll forget everything. And it doesn't even mean pretending it didn't hurt. Forgiveness actually brings freedom. It doesn't change the past, but it can change the present. When you choose to forgive, you're saying that you no longer want that pain to dominate your thoughts, your feelings, and your daily life. It's a choice to take care of yourself. This is a very personal, very intimate gesture. The focus is no longer on the person who hurt you. The focus is now on you, who wants to feel good again, who wants to give up your victim role and become stronger. Psychologist Monica Gutierrez explains this beautifully. Forgiveness is not a gift for the person who hurt you, but a liberation for the person who forgives. And you don't even have to tell the other person. Forgiveness happens inside, in the silence of your heart. Many people confuse forgiveness with reconnecting. But they're not the same thing. You can truly forgive someone and still choose never to be with that person again. Forgiveness is a door to your peace, not to rekindling a friendship or relationship. Sometimes writing helps with this process. You can write a letter and describe everything you've been feeling, not to deliver, just to get it out there. After writing, you can tear up, burn, or throw away this letter. This simple gesture has great value. It's as if you're saying to yourself, I'm not going to carry this around with me anymore. It's the beginning of a new phase, a phase without this pain. You can say, I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to find peace. This is how you take control of your emotions. It's like quietly saying, I will not allow this pain to stay with me forever. Forgiving means seeing life with new eyes. It's not about the other person, it's about you. It's about regaining your joy, your strength, and your carefree way of life. It can be helpful to do this in a quiet moment, away from noise and without a cell phone. Choose a peaceful place. Feel the silence. Let this moment become special, like a small ritual. It's like saying, I respect myself, I take care of myself. And then just be still. Breathe, feel your body. Let your soul understand that something important has happened. And little by little, elegant oblivion comes. It's not out of anger. That's because you're healed. There are people who don't even deserve our hatred. They only deserve our silence and our distance. Not because the pain wasn't real, but because it's no longer worth feeling all that. True forgiveness isn't a gift to the other person. It's a courageous act. It's a beautiful way to love yourself. It's not always easy, and it's not always quick. But when it happens, something breaks free inside you, and you feel light. And you can go on with more calm, more freedom, and more peace in your heart. 12. Learn to slow down without guilt. There is a kind of tiredness that cannot be cured by sleep. It is the weariness of the soul, overwhelmed by the rhythm of the world. A silent exhaustion that manifests not as fever, but as mental confusion, loss of luster in the eyes, and a seemingly causeless irritability. Modern life has become a marathon without a finish line, and more people are running without knowing why. Slowing down has become a subversive act. In a world where productivity is a symbol of value, quitting seems like laziness. Breathing slowly seems like a waste. And living slowly has become almost an emotional heresy. Yet few realize that constant haste becomes an invisible prison, and the blame lies with its keeper. We feel guilty about resting, about doing nothing, about not responding to messages in a timely manner, about saying, I can't right now. We become slaves to the urgency of others, the noise of notifications, and the illusion that everything must be done, already as if slowing down was a sign of failure rather than wisdom. Epictetus, one of the great teachers of Stoicism, said, Wealth consists not in having many possessions, but in having few needs. And this also applies to time. The true luxury today is not having a full schedule, but having space to breathe between commitments. True power lies not in doing more, but in doing what matters most with presence. When you slow down, you hear what the noise prevents you from hearing. You become aware of how much you've been acting automatically, how much you've been responding without thinking, how much you've been acting without feeling, how much you've been living without realizing it. In this slowed silence, consciousness awakens, and with it comes clarity about what's truly important. But the process of slowing down requires courage, because slowing down means detaching yourself from external expectations. It's about saying "not today" without justifying yourself. It's about choosing peace even if it seems unproductive, and that goes against everything we've learned about self-esteem. A useful Stoic exercise here is premeditatio malorum, imagining what would happen if you weren't always available, and the answer is almost always nothing serious. The world keeps turning, the news keeps coming, and the people who really matter get it. What does this show? That your constant presence isn't as important as you think, and that's liberating. Try creating slow-down rituals. It could be a 20-minute break in the middle of the day where you do nothing. A long bath without your phone. An afternoon without answering anyone. A night where you allow yourself to be useless. These moments aren't a waste of time. They're an investment in your mental health, in your presence, in yourself. In that moment of pause, clarity arises. Seneca said, "Hurry to live well and remember that each day is a life in itself." When you slow down, you begin to live like this, with intention, with delivery, with the awareness that your energy is not infinite and that the richest life is measured not by speed but by depth. And if you feel guilty about slowing down, look it in the eye and say, "I am not a machine. You were not born to answer everything, to deliver everything, to solve everything. You came to life, and life also includes pausing, boredom included. It includes silence. Because true growth doesn't only happen through success, it also happens in the spaces in between." Slowing down without guilt is an act of reconciliation with your inner rhythm. It's about stepping out of the noise of should and into the space of enough is enough. It means accepting that not everything needs to be done today, that your mental health can't be the currency you trade for productivity, and that your worth lies not in the quantity of tasks completed, but in the quality of your presence. Ultimately, life is a fertile field, but the land also needs rest between harvests. If nature so wisely rests in cycles, why shouldn't you too? The world keeps turning, but you don't have to keep turning with it. Slowing down is perhaps the most revolutionary act of those who refuse to live in survival mode. And when you learn to do so guilt-free, something blossoms within you. A calm that doesn't ask for permission, a presence that requires no explanation, a freedom that begins where the rush ends. 13. Courageously take responsibility for your own life. From an early age, we learn to obey, follow rules, and do what is expected of us. We often believe that our happiness depends on what others think or say, such as being accepted by our family, receiving compliments, or achieving goals we didn't even choose. But what if I told you that this is all just an idea that seems true but isn't? What if I told you that true freedom lies not in the things you have or in what others think of you, but in who you really are, even when you're alone? Life doesn't have to follow someone else's script. It's like a car that you can drive wherever you want. The problem is that many people give this instruction without even realizing it. Why should that be so? Maybe because it feels more comfortable to take the easy path than to make other choices. But today is the perfect day to change that. Today is the day you can begin writing your own journey. The truth is, we all come into this world alone and will leave it alone one day. So why do we feel the need to be surrounded by approval and company at every step? Stoic thinkers had long pondered this. They said we forget how strong we are inside, and that trying to please everyone all the time leads us to live a life that isn't ours. And living like that isn't really living, it's letting others choose our path. The Stoics believed that emotional dependence on others was like imprisonment. Epictetus said that no one is truly free unless they know how to take care of themselves. If your well-being and happiness depend on what someone else thinks or does, you will never experience true freedom. For them, true freedom means being able to choose how you act and how you feel, even when things aren't going well around you. Now think about this with me. The next time you feel like you're trying to please someone, stop and ask yourself, am I living my life or am I just trying to do what other people want? Marcus Aurelius, another great philosopher, wrote something very wise: "He who needs little is closest to the gods." This phrase applies to both material things and feelings. Feeling good because others have to tell you you're good or special can make you fragile. But when you learn to find security within yourself, you'll become as solid as a mountain. Storms may come, but you won't be shaken because your strength is within you, like deep roots. Moreover, science also confirms this. Research from the University of California has shown that people who develop emotional self-confidence are less likely to experience extreme sadness or anxiety. When we aren't dependent on others to make us feel better, we can face life's ups and downs with more balance. So living without the approval of others isn't just an old idea, it's a real possibility for living in greater peace and security. But how do you get started? Here are some steps. Think about what is important to you. Ask yourself, what truly makes me happy? Am I doing this because I believe in it, or just because someone expects me to? It can be difficult to recognize that we live to please others, but recognizing this is the first step toward change. Create your own values. The Stoics said that living according to our principles sets us free. So choose what matters most to you. It could be respect, courage, kindness, or another value. Use these values as a compass to guide you on the right path. And remember, the world will try to steer you off your path, but if you're confident in your values, no one can dissuade you. Learn to say no firmly. You don't have to give a lot of explanations. When you say no to what's not good for you, you're saying yes to what helps you grow. Always ask yourself, am I forging my own path, or am I just imitating someone else? Think about it. Life is too short to live it the way others want you to. It's time for you to take the reins and forge your own path. It won't be easy, but it will be true. Now it's up to you. Choose your path, decide where you're going, and experience the freedom that only those who truly know themselves can feel. The world may try to make you doubt by convincing you that it's better to follow rules and please others. But now you know, the greatest power over your life lies within you. You've learned that true security comes from trusting your own decisions. Remember this when you're afraid or thinking about letting someone else decide for you. Silently repeat the words of Epictetus: "No one is free unless they are master of themselves." Take control of your life, follow your path with courage, and believe that every honest decision you make will lead you to a more truthful life. Because in the end, what matters most is whether you've lived honestly with yourself. The idea that we can control everything that happens around us is one of the biggest traps there is. We often believe that if we behave a certain way, we will be accepted, admired, and even loved. But the important question is, are you making your own decisions, or are you simply trying to avoid rejection? Many people spend their entire lives doing what others expect of them, forgetting to live a life that is truly theirs. True freedom isn't about pleasing everyone, but about having the courage to be who you truly are, without asking for permission and without needing praise. But being responsible with your own life doesn't mean doing whatever you want without considering the consequences. There's a big difference between freedom and limitlessness. True freedom doesn't mean doing what you want without thinking about what comes next, but living with determination and clear values. Stoic thinkers never advocated a chaotic life, but rather a life guided by inner principles that help you make decisions without depending on what others approve or disapprove. The secret of freedom lies in being able to control and guide ourselves. Only when we are able to make decisions calmly and without impulse can we say that we are truly the owners of our lives. One of the biggest obstacles to this is guilt. Since childhood, we hear that it is selfish to say no, that it is wrong to think only of ourselves, and that we must always please others. But what hurts more? Disappointing someone or giving up on yourself? It's very important to learn to recognize when guilt is being used to prevent us from growing and making our own decisions. Guilt is often used by people as a means of control, to make us feel responsible for our feelings and well-being. But in truth, each person is responsible for their own happiness and their own decisions. We cannot remain trapped in the idea that we need the approval of others to truly exist. Another misconception is that life can be completely secure. Many people believe there is only one right path: getting a good job, having a stable relationship, and being a joy to family and society. But this outward security is an illusion. Everything around us can change. True stability comes from within, from how much we trust our decisions, how well we know ourselves, and how able we are to live according to what we believe is right, even if it contradicts the wishes of others. On this path to personal liberation, detachment is a very important component. It doesn't mean living far away from everyone, but rather learning to love without trying to control, to help without expecting anything in return, and to give with a light-heartedness. Emotional detachment doesn't mean being cold or distant, but rather not allowing the attitudes of others to take away your inner peace. It's about understanding that our happiness depends on how we support ourselves emotionally, not on what others do or don't do. If you want to know if you're truly in control of your life, observe a few attitudes in your daily life. Do you find it difficult to make decisions on your own? Are you too afraid of disappointing people? Do you choose paths that don't make you happy just to avoid arguments? Do you need the approval of others to feel good about yourself? Do you feel like you can't show who you really are in certain places? If you find yourself in this situation, you may have lost some of your freedom without even realizing it. One of the greatest enemies of our growth is putting things off. There are people who spend their whole lives waiting for the perfect moment to make a change. I'll do it later, when I have more money, when things are calmer. But that perfect moment never comes. The only way to change your life is to start now, even if it's just with a small step. The size of the action is not so important, but rather the will to move forward. This change can be difficult and uncomfortable. It requires us to face fear, doubt, and even resistance from those close to us. It's like waking up from a deep sleep. At first it hurts, but when you realize the truth, you don't want to go back to sleep. Growing up means leaving the place where everything seems safe, questioning the ideas that seemed right, and building a new, truer version of yourself. If you choose to live a free life, you're likely to face criticism. Not everyone will understand your lifestyle, and some may even try to make you doubt yourself. How can you protect yourself from this? Build a mental shield based on strong values. The opinions of others only have power if you allow them to. If you're confident in your decisions, no amount of criticism can take away your confidence. Yet the most precious gift of an autonomous life is not only independence, but also the feeling of inner peace. Knowing that every decision comes from the heart, without fear, without pretense, and without the need to please anyone but yourself, is what is truly liberating. Being authentic doesn't mean being perfect or never making mistakes, but living in alignment with what you believe to be true. And that is, without a doubt, the greatest achievement a person can accomplish in life. 14. Be careful what you carry. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, everything inside you determines how you feel and live each moment. Even if the world around you is changing, it's what's going on in your mind and heart that makes all the difference. A strong inner world determines whether you perish in the face of adversity or remain steadfast and courageously pursue your path. A secure mind isn't born ready, it's built little by little and with patience. Difficult moments are part of life, but how you respond to them depends on what you believe and feel. If you view problems as enemies, they will wear you down. But if you view them as learning experiences, they can make you stronger. Those who prepare for challenges discover that inner strength is not just a skill, but a way of life. True mental strength is achieved when you understand that life doesn't just happen to you. You participate in shaping it with every thought and every decision. Reading is a wonderful way to grow internally. Every book is like a silent teacher, showing you paths and stories you may never actually experience. As you turn the pages, you encounter incredible people and ideas that have stood the test of time. Reading isn't just about learning facts, it's also about transformation. Reading opens your eyes, changes your mind, and nourishes your inner world with ideas that go far beyond what you see in everyday life. A good book can touch your heart and awaken in you a desire to know yourself better. Only when we look within do we truly understand ourselves. Sometimes what we seek outside is already stored within us, waiting to be found. Discovering your life's meaning doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey full of questions and discoveries. Ask yourself, what keeps me going? Why did I come into this world? How can I live a life that has true meaning? Reflecting on these questions can help you find greater clarity amidst the many distractions. Imagination is an amazing tool. Everything that exists around us was once a thought before becoming reality. If you can imagine it, you can create it. It's not just about dreaming, it's about seeing things that don't yet exist and working to make them a reality. Using your imagination, you can glimpse the beyond, overcome barriers, and build a life more like your dreams. Developing this gift means becoming the designer of your own journey. The way you talk to yourself can be your best friend or your worst enemy. The way you see and treat yourself changes how much you believe in yourself, how much you trust your decisions, and how you handle difficult times. If you constantly criticize or belittle yourself, life will feel like a battle against yourself. But if you learn to welcome yourself with affection and courage, your inner world will become increasingly stronger. Be your greatest support. Be your own guide. Especially when everything seems confusing, being present is one of the most valuable things you can learn. What has already happened cannot be changed, and what is yet to happen is yet to come. When you get stuck in any of these times, you end up forgetting the now, the only moment that truly exists. Life happens in the present, and learning to live this moment with awareness brings peace and understanding. Being present isn't just a practice, it's a way of seeing life with more love and meaning, even in the simplest things. Then comes the idea of leaving something behind for the world. One day all the things we can touch will disappear, but what we leave behind in people and their memories remains. Legacy isn't about achieving fame or applause, but about living in a way that makes your presence matter. You may be asking yourself, what story do I want to tell with my life? How do I want to be remembered? Every action, every word, and every decision is part of the story you are writing. May it be something special. In a world full of noise, warnings, and distractions, finding inner stillness is rare but very valuable. In this stillness, clarity emerges. The mind, previously full of jumbled thoughts, begins to hear its own voice more calmly. We often try to find answers in other people, in other people's opinions, or in the endless news. But true growth happens when we pause for a moment and delve within ourselves. When you take the time to look within, you begin to realize what you truly want, not just what you've learned to wish for. Being still, reflecting, and simply being with your own thoughts opens up an important space within you. In this space, doubts diminish and the answers become clearer. But silence alone isn't everything. The way you see yourself also plays an important role. Do you consider yourself brave, capable, and worthy of good things? Or do you allow insecurity and self-criticism to take over? The image you have of yourself isn't simply what's there. It's created every day by your thoughts and attitudes. Changing your self-image requires attention and care, as if you were a small plant that needs watering. It's your job to remind yourself every day of your worth and capabilities. This isn't about deceiving yourself, but rather about recognizing what you can be and acting accordingly. This transition isn't always easy. Life throws obstacles in our path, and emotions can erupt into storms within us. Emotional strength helps you weather these moments without losing your balance. It's not about pretending you don't feel fear or sadness, but about learning to handle these emotions wisely. You learn to face challenges calmly over time, and the more often you do it, the stronger you become inside. As our hearts and minds grow stronger, as we learn to manage our emotions, so do we when we develop healthy habits in our daily lives. Having a routine isn't boring or something that holds you back. On the contrary, it helps build a more solid and peaceful inner world. What you see, hear, who you talk to, what books you read, and even the thoughts you have when you wake up or go to sleep, all of these things influence how you feel inside. Each day can begin with clarity or confusion, and that difference depends on the choices you make. Simple things like writing down your feelings, moving your body, or remembering what you're grateful for create a strong foundation that helps you grow. But that's not all that matters. Where you are also has a huge impact. Even if your inner strength is well developed, the environment around you can change the way you think and feel. The people you spend time with, the places you stay, the sounds and sights you see, all of these can lift your spirits or leave you feeling drained. Creating an environment conducive to your development doesn't require isolating yourself from the world, but rather carefully choosing the type of energy you want to be in. Beyond everything we see and touch, there's something deeper. Spirituality. It's not just about religion, it's about feeling like you're part of something greater. It could be an idea, a tree, a song, a moment of silence, or anything else that brings you peace and makes your heart feel like it has a deeper meaning. When you connect with the eternal and transcend what can end, you find a power that never runs dry. On days when everything seems difficult, this connection to something greater becomes a safe place, helping you move forward with courage. And just as morning opens a new day, night helps you calmly close a cycle. Before going to bed, pause and reflect on what you've experienced. Let go of your worries, be grateful for what you've learned, and consider what you want for tomorrow. All of this helps strengthen your spirit. Conscious rest not only benefits the body, but also clears the mind, preparing it for the next day with greater strength and clarity. Building a solid inner world is a journey that takes time. It requires effort, self-awareness, and a true desire to change from within. When you strengthen this inner part, you understand that external things don't have as much power over you. In this sense of calm that comes from within and isn't dependent on your environment, you'll find true freedom. Your inner world is your protection, your refuge, and your best tool for overcoming challenges. It's not about running away from what's happening, but about changing the way you deal with it from within. Creating this inner space requires intention, practice, and an honest look at yourself. And once you achieve that, nothing can hold you back. Life will constantly change, obstacles will arise, and many things will try to distract your attention. But a mind trained with diligence and purpose will remain steadfast. Ultimately, the world around you reveals the world that exists within you. Therefore, make this inner world a place filled with peace, clarity, and the will to move forward. 15. Pay attention to what your body is trying to tell you. The body has a special way of speaking to us. It doesn't use words, but sends signals. It doesn't form sentences, but it displays strong emotions. When something is wrong, it doesn't remain silent, it warns. We live in a world where it's important to be busy, strong, and in control. That's why we often learn not to listen to that silent voice that lives within us, in our muscles, organs, and every little part of our body. But even if we try to ignore it through distraction, medication, or pretending everything is fine, the body always finds a way to get attention. It might be that tightness in your stomach that comes every day before you go to school or work. When you're around certain people, it can feel like tightness in your chest, or headaches that recur and for which there is no clear explanation. What if these signs weren't just physical things, but messages that come from emotions you've been carrying for a long time? What if these aches and pains are feelings you haven't talked about, tears you've been holding back, decisions you've been putting off? For a long time, people believed that illnesses were only related to the body, that every pain must have a visible cause. But today, more than ever, we know something that many ancient peoples already understood. Body and emotions belong together, like old friends who understand each other without speaking. It's no coincidence that we also feel our nervousness, sadness, or fear physically. What the mind can't comprehend, the body stores. It's as if the body were a secret box containing traces of emotions we can't resolve. When it gets too much, it shows signs. An example of this is Lara. She was known as a strong woman who always resolved everything and never let herself be shaken. Everyone around him admired his strength and energy, but one day she felt very tired, dizzy, and had body aches. The tests showed that she was healthy, but she had the feeling that this wasn't the case. Then a therapist asked him a question that changed everything. What if your body just told you what you've been trying to hide for years? At that moment, she understood. For a long time, she swallowed her sadness, her tiredness, and her desire for rest. But her body, faithful and intelligent, could no longer hide it. A quote from the writer Gemma Sanchez Cuevas sums this up perfectly. The body stores what the mind cannot process. Just look. The pain in the hand of a woman who takes care of everyone but forgets to take care of herself. Or the back pain of a man who has family worries that are none of his business. Everything begins to make sense when we learn to truly listen. The body isn't just for walking, running, or working. It's also a map, a mirror, and sometimes a cry for help. And at this point, it's good to remember that some people misunderstand Stoicism. They believe that strength means enduring everything silently, carrying on even when it hurts, and never showing how you feel. But that's not really strong. That means severing the connection with yourself. True Stoicism, as practiced by Seneca, doesn't tell us to ignore pain. It teaches us that we must approach it with respect and awareness. True strength lies not in hiding our feelings, but in having the courage to listen to our heart and body, and then act intelligently. One of the simplest and most effective methods for this is called body scanning. It's not difficult. Anyone can try it. Just take a few minutes at the end of the day, be still, close your eyes and breathe slowly. You might ask yourself, where in my body do I feel pain or tension? Is there a part that feels more tense or heavier? You might notice that you always have a heavy feeling in your chest after conversations with certain people, or that your neck hurts when you think about something you don't like doing. The body knows things before we do, we just have to learn to listen. 16. Stop running away from pain. You're also a teacher. Pain doesn't knock gently, it enters without asking permission. Sometimes it screams, sometimes it whispers, but it always carries a message, and the more we try to silence it, the more it insists on being heard. We live in a culture addicted to anesthesia. When something hurts, we try to distract ourselves, consume ourselves, and deny it. We've become experts at escaping. We jump from relationship to relationship, from screen to screen, from setting to setting. Everything we don't want to feel, as if pain were a mistake, not a step. As if it were a punishment, not an invitation. But there is one truth that, if accepted, changes everything. Pain doesn't come to destroy us. It comes to teach us something. Of course, not all pain is just. Not every wound is deserved. Some are caused by the malice of others, by loss, by injustice. But running away from the pain doesn't repair the damage. It only prolongs it, because what we don't want to feel, we end up carrying with us. And what we carry around without processing will one day paralyze us. Stoicism never romanticized suffering, but it also never viewed it as an enemy. For Seneca, pain is part of human existence. We should not fear it, but learn from it. Epictetus, who lived as a slave, said, "What matters is not what happens to you, but how you react to what happens." Pain is a stern but faithful teacher. It shows you what you've been ignoring. It reveals where there's too much attachment, too much haste, and too high expectations. It reveals your hidden strength. It shows that you can handle more than you think, and that there are parts of you that only flourish in the darkness. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What is this trying to tell me?" This question doesn't soothe pain, but rather transforms it. It doesn't seek meaning where there is none, but rather gains knowledge where there is fertile ground. Pain teaches boundaries, teaches self-care, teaches distance. When someone leaves and it hurts, you learn about presence. When a door closes and it hurts, you learn about faith. When you fail and it hurts, you learn humility. Growth rarely happens in comfort. It's in the cracks. And here is a hard truth. The pain you avoid today will be your prison tomorrow. When you avoid talking, remembering, and dealing with it, the pain only grows stronger behind the scenes. It shows up in your relationships, in your sleep, in your body. And then, yes, it becomes suffering, because unfelt pain becomes an illness, emotional or physical. Then stop, breathe, feel it. Don't fight what already is. Welcome. Like a student facing a master who teaches with silence, with discomfort, with mirrors, you don't have to like pain, but you can choose to respect it. Create a sacred space to listen to it. Sit in silence. Write. Walk without music, without distractions. Allow the pain to say what it needs to say. Give it a name, a face, a voice. Make it a part of your story, not an enemy you relegate to the basement of your consciousness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything that happens to us is material for virtue." What he meant was that even the harshest pain can become a breeding ground for courage, patience, and resilience, if you allow it. Turn pain into a ritual. Write her a letter. Say, "I see you. I know you're here. I won't run away anymore." Then burn the letter, not to erase the past, but to transform pain into light, a fire that doesn't destroy, but illuminates. Pain is like the dark night of the soul, but every night has an end, and the darker it is, the closer the dawn is. The Stoic does not deny pain. He walks with it, head held high and heart steadfast. Stop running away. Pain only haunts you if you try to lock it away. When you embrace it, it becomes a transition, a crossroads, a ritual of rebirth. You are not your pain. Your strength comes from what you do with it. Ultimately, pain is one of life's most honest voices, and when you learn to listen to it, you'll discover a quiet power, the strength to carry on, not because it didn't hurt, but because you didn't let what hurt you hold you hostage. 17. Have you ever noticed that sometimes we wait for something external to complete us? We look for compliments. We want to experience a flawless love. We dream of success or a secure life. All of this always seems a little far away. We believe that when these things happen, we'll finally feel peace in our hearts. But what if I told you that what you're seeking already lives within you? That you don't have to go far to find it, but rather look within. Great sages have long declared that true joy lies not in the things we receive from the world, but in what we discover within ourselves. Yet we continue to look outward. We hope that life will bring us what, in truth, only we can give ourselves. Have you ever felt like you'll only be happy if something outside of you changes? As if peace of mind, love, or security depended on other people or situations beyond your control. This feeling can be very stressful, as if we're always chasing something we can never achieve. But I'll let you in on a secret. What you're looking for is right there, waiting for you to notice. It's very common for us to fall into this trap. We believe that if we get recognition, find someone special, or achieve our goals, everything will fall into place. But there's something important here. The emptiness we feel inside won't be filled unless we learn to look within. How many times have you achieved something you really wanted, but the joy of it soon faded? It happens to all of us, believe me. I've experienced it myself. Now comes the best part. True happiness doesn't depend on what we have or who is by our side. It arises from what already lives within us. The ancient Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Search within yourself, for there lies the source of good. And don't stop searching until you find it." Isn't it amazing? Imagine you have a chest full of treasures. You spend your entire life searching the world for jewels, when in reality, everything you need is in this box. But if you never have the courage to open it, you will continue this endless search. Believe me, everything you are looking for is already with you, waiting for your attentive gaze. Consider also the Dalai Lama, a master living in the present day. He dedicated his life to showing that true peace is not found in things or the opinions of others, but in paying attention to one's heart and mind. This shows that happiness comes from within. So how about trying something different? Instead of chasing what you seem to lack, take some time for yourself. Take a break. Try to see yourself without the labels people attach to you. Appreciate what you have within you, your qualities, your unique path, your inner strength. Be grateful for all of it. Enjoy your own company. Don't be afraid of silence or solitude. In this moment, in the silence with yourself, you will realize that peace has always reigned. My friend, this doesn't mean you have to stop dreaming or fighting for your goals, but rather, understand that you are already complete. That you are valuable, even if you don't depend on anything outside of yourself. The Stoics teach us that true strength emerges when we accept who we are and learn to like ourselves without depending on the opinions of others. Stay true to yourself, not because you don't want anyone around you, but because you know that what you have in your heart is enough. Sometimes looking outside only distracts us from what's truly important. This doesn't mean giving up on your dreams, but rather recognizing that your worth doesn't depend on success. When you stop looking outside and start listening to yourself, you discover that you are already complete. Not because someone told you so, but because you truly feel it. And then a special freedom arises, the freedom to realize that everything you need is already within you. So don't wait any longer. Start trusting this abundance that already lives within you. In that place where your true self lives, you will find everything you've ever sought. 18. Appreciate small rituals. There is a quiet power in simple gestures, looking out the window while brushing your teeth, calmly preparing breakfast, making the bed as if putting your own mind in order. These small everyday acts, unhurried and without boasting, conceal a power we no longer perceive in a world that values only the extraordinary. Yet it is the daily, repetitive and silent rituals in which the soul finds refuge. Modern life has forced us into a constant hustle and bustle. We wake up in a hurry, our heads full of notifications, tasks and goals. We forget that life isn't just about accomplishing something. It's also breathing, touch, be, and most importantly, understand. Small rituals are daily invitations to slow down and remember that we are alive, and that life happens even in the time between our commitments. It's not wasted time. It's time we give back to ourselves. You may never have realized it, but there's something deeply restorative about quietly sweeping the floor, carefully folding a shirt, or gently wiping a surface with a cloth. Not because it's efficient, but because you're there, present, whole, and doing one thing at a time. The mind, accustomed to being scattered in 1,000 directions, finally settles. And when the body moves consciously, the heart listens better. These small rituals also act as emotional anchors. When everything seems uncertain, they remind us that there is still order. When the outside world seems chaotic, they show us that we can actually take care of our little inner world. They don't solve all problems, but they create an inner space where we can breathe more easily to face them. Stoicism teaches that we should nurture what is within our control with care and let go of what is not with serenity. Small rituals are the practical implementation of this principle. We can't control the winds of life, but we can light a candle every night, carefully prepare a cup of tea, or write 3 lines of gratitude before bed. These gestures don't change the world, but they change you, and that's enough. There are people who believe that only great achievements count, but the truth is, it's the small daily habits that make us who we are. A simple intentional gesture is worth more than a grand gesture made out of duty. It's not about turning life into a series of mechanical routines, but about rescuing the sacred in the everyday, about transforming tasks into rituals, making something meaningful out of the everyday. Try taking 5 minutes a day to do something slower and more present. This could be taking a mindful shower, washing dishes with the feeling of the water, lighting incense, and breathing deeply. Give the moment the importance it deserves, and then feel your mind settle, your body relax, and you begin to sense that there is something among the noise of life, a space of presence. Create your own rituals. They don't have to be complex. They can be as simple as lighting a candle when you wake up, writing an affirmation on the mirror, preparing a meal with your own hands, or listening to music every morning. Make a date with yourself. A non-negotiable space where you can take care of yourself without having to explain yourself. This type of ritual isn't meant to distract you, but to bring you back. And over time, you'll find that these little rituals take root within you. In the midst of chaos, they are the ones that hold you steady. In the midst of pain, they are the ones that offer protection. On good days, they celebrate in silence. On bad days, they quietly welcome you. They demand nothing but give you everything: presence, rhythm, meaning. Life isn't a marathon of great achievements. Living is about being present in the moment, and rituals remind us that the moment matters. When everything seems formless, return to the essence. Light a candle, take a deep breath, brew your coffee with care, and remember, the soul of great change lies in small gestures. 19. Refuse to live in automatic mode. Wake up, run, produce, fulfill, put out fires, respond to messages, go to bed tired, and repeat it all again the next day. This is the routine of millions of people who live on autopilot. They do what they have to do, follow the predetermined paths, react without thinking, live without feeling. And in the end, they wonder why life seems so empty, so boring, and so tasteless to them. The answer is painful but simple. They're not living. It's just happening. Automatic mode is a defense mechanism of the mind. It protects us from making too many decisions and helps us function when the world seems too difficult. But when this mode becomes permanent, we cease to exist consciously. We become cogs, not protagonists. We react to everything, but we make almost no decisions. The day passes and we don't remember the taste of the coffee, the sunlight streaming through the window, or the sound of our own breathing. Have you ever felt like time passes too quickly, that the weeks fly by, the months pile up, and you barely remember what happened? This is the effect of automatic mode. When your mind isn't present, time isn't recorded. Life becomes a blur of soulless, completed tasks. And ultimately, it's not the tasks that tire you, but the futility with which you complete them. Rejecting automatic mode is an act of resistance. In a world that demands constant productivity, simply pausing for a moment and looking up at the sky is revolutionary. Breathe consciously. Pause before responding. Choose silence over automatic response. These small actions will pull you out of the hypnosis of everyday life and bring you back to your own life. The philosopher Seneca said that it's not life that's short, but the way we live it that makes it short. Because we spend too much time outdoors, preoccupied with everything but the essentials. And when we realize this, we no longer know why we do what we do. We've lost the thread of our own story. And the most tragic thing? Often we're not even aware this is happening. Being present is more than just being physically in a place. It's about understanding the now, feeling the now, choosing the now. It's about asking yourself, what am I feeling? What am I avoiding? What am I accepting without realizing it? These questions interrupt the automatic cycle and reopen the door to insight. They remind you that you have a choice. I always have. To break out of automatic mode, start with simple gestures. When you wake up, look at the ceiling and breathe 3 times before picking up your phone. While you eat, chew slowly, savor your food, and be grateful for it. As you walk down the street, look up at the sky, notice the trees, and listen to the sound of your footsteps. These practices won't change your routine, but they will change your relationship with it. And that's what matters. Create small rituals of presence in your day. These might be taking a mindful shower, writing a note of gratitude, looking in the mirror, and greeting someone with a smile. These are details, but they cause cracks in the concrete of repetition. And through these cracks, true life returns. The biggest pitfall of automatic mode is that it makes you feel like you don't have time to stop. But precisely because you're always running, you have to stop. Only in silence do you listen to yourself. Only when you pause do you realize where you're going. And sometimes you realize you've been running in the wrong direction. Don't wait for a breakdown to make changes. Don't wait for pain to wake you up. Start now with what you have, where you are. Choose to be, choose to feel, choose to step out of the soulless hustle and bustle. Rejecting automatic mode means saying yes to life. It says yes to you. And perhaps, ultimately, living in presence is the only true way to live. 20. Redefine success based on what makes you feel good. From a very young age, you were taught what success was. A diploma on the wall, an important position, a big house, an impressive car, a good bank account. They said if you had all that, you would be happy. And you believed it. He chased after them, made sacrifices, ignored his intuition, and adjusted his dreams to the expectations of others. But in the silence of the night, where everything seemed to be in order, something was still missing. Because no one taught you one simple thing: success that costs you peace is failure in disguise. Living a life trying to achieve an ideal you didn't create yourself is like chasing a mirage. The closer it seems, the further away it feels inside. And the saddest part? We often only realize this when we're already exhausted, when we achieve what was promised to us as everything. And yet, we feel nothing. Have you ever considered whether what you're seeking is truly good for you? Or are you simply repeating what you've seen and heard, and what's expected of you? Success isn't a medal, It's a feeling, and it's not expressed in numbers or titles, but in states of mind: calm, ease, determination, truth. Success means living in harmony with what makes you breathe better, not with what impresses others. Society measures success by volume, visibility, and speed. But maybe success is something else: doing what you love, even when no one is watching. Having time to have lunch with the people you love. Sleep in peace. Wake up feeling good. Say no to what drains you. Say yes to what nourishes you. Have inner space, have time, make sense. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists much more in having few desires than in having many possessions." For him, success lay in inner freedom, not in external recognition. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote daily to remind himself that power without virtue is nothing. For them, true triumph lay in conquering oneself, not in conquering the world at the expense of one's own soul. Redefining success begins with a simple, radical question: what is really good for me? And then courage. Reorganize your life based on this answer. Maybe it will slow down. Maybe it will change your ways. Maybe it will be about valuing the invisible: your mental health, your free time, your sincere relationships. This doesn't mean giving up on your dreams or backing down, but it does mean stopping measuring yourself by other people's standards. You can still try to grow, succeed, and build. But do it now intentionally, not in haste, with purpose, not out of obligation, with presence, not by comparison. A powerful exercise is to write down your own definition of success. Grab a pen and a piece of paper and describe in detail what a life that's good for you would look like. Not a life that impresses others, but a life that brings a smile to your face at the end of the day. Include small things: your ideal routine, the people you want to be around, the type of work that energizes you, the habits you connect with yourself. Then consider, how many of these things do you already have? Which ones are you ignoring because you're too busy chasing what's been described as success? This simple reflection can change everything, because sometimes what's missing isn't the desire to achieve more, but rather the lack of appreciation for what's already there. Remember, success isn't a fixed point in the future. It's a state of alignment between what you do and who you are. This happens when your routine aligns with your values, when your outer life doesn't conflict with your inner peace. And for that, you don't need a stage or applause, you just need the truth. The greatest success in life is ultimately about looking in the mirror and recognizing yourself. The feeling that you're living in a meaningful way. That you're neither betraying yourself, nor abandoning yourself, nor living a version of yourself that you've invented to please. Redefining success is actually about liberating yourself. It's about firmly and gently declaring, "I choose a life that is good for me." And that is perhaps the rarest and truest triumph anyone can achieve. 21. Practice letting go of labels. You are not a label. It's not just about smart, failure, anxious, strong, difficult, or sweet. Labels are like post-its that cling to the soul, fragile, superficial, but over time they begin to seem like absolute truths. We forget that we can reinvent ourselves because we believe too much in what others say about us. Often, these labels weren't chosen by us. They were assigned to us in childhood by family members, teachers, peers, or even by ourselves as we tried to understand the world. You're shy. You're the funny one. You're the problematic one. Words spoken without conscience, yet which become invisible tattoos on our identities. And the more we repeat them, the more we reduce ourselves to these forms. The problem isn't naming things. The problem is being trapped by names as if they were cages. Because every label brings expectations, and every expectation is limiting. When people tell you you're strong, you feel like you can't cry. When they say it's intense, you believe it'll never calm down. When they tell you you're slow, you compare yourself to others before you even begin. And by living so much through the eyes of others, you begin to distance yourself from the real you. Nietzsche said, "Become who you are." It seems paradoxical, but it's a profound calling. Because being yourself isn't about discovering something fixed. It's about having the courage to break free from the mold, It's about understanding that identity isn't a marble statue, but a dance in motion. You change. And that's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of life. Letting go of labels requires a small inner revolution, a silent refusal to continue playing roles that no longer suit you, an act of loving rebellion against what limits you. A simple exercise to start with. Write down all the labels you've ever heard about yourself. So look at each one and ask yourself, do I still want to be this? Or does this help me or limit me? Tear off the paper. And on another blank sheet of paper, write something that expresses how you're feeling today, without having to commit to anything specific. It may seem too symbolic, but these small rituals have power. They mark the end of a cycle of blind identification and the beginning of a more generous and curious view of yourself. When you detach yourself from what others say about you, you begin to discover who you can be, and that is one of life's most liberating experiences. Yes, the process of freeing yourself from labels can be uncomfortable, because the unknown scares you. It's easier to continue being the good student, the strong one in the family, the funny one in the group, even if it costs you your authenticity. But the price is even higher. You have to live without giving yourself the opportunity to change, to grow, to fail, or to experience surprises. You don't have to conform to the image others have of you. It has to match the moment. Today you might be more sensitive, tomorrow braver, then more taciturn. None of this takes away your personality. It simply reveals your facets. Identity is not a fixed concept, but a fluid process. Letting go of labels doesn't mean rejecting your own story. It's about no longer defining yourself solely by it. You are not your trauma, your job, your diagnosis, or your achievements. You are the space that transforms from all of this, and that can choose a new way of being at any time. So smile inside when someone tries to define you with just one word, because you know there's more. Every time you hear yourself say, "This is just the way I am," ask yourself, "Do I have to stay this way?" Because the answer might be no. And that doesn't make you incoherent, it sets you free. Ultimately, letting go of labels is a gesture of self-love. It means saying to yourself, "I allow myself to be more than I've been told I can be." And with that permission, a new space emerges. Lighter, truer, more you. 22. Stay close to those who calm you down, not those who confuse you. In life, as in play, everyone has a kind of invisible energy bar inside them. We can't see or hear any warning when this energy is running out, but we feel it. Sometimes we wake up feeling unmotivated and impatient, unwilling to do anything, our minds full of jumbled thoughts, and we don't even know why. This isn't always because our bodies are tired or we have so much to do, but because of the people we let too close to our lives. They're the ones with whom we share important moments, our emotions, our silence, our attention. That's why it's important to stay close to those who bring lightness, not those who make noise. Because every conversation, every encounter, every person who gets too close to you either contributes to replenishing your energy or draining it without you even realizing it. There are people who are like bonuses in games. They cheer you up, help you see things more clearly, and make you feel welcome. Just talk to them a little, and everything will seem easier. They don't demand explanations for your silence or for when you're tired. They understand. They won't get you into trouble or involve you in problems that aren't yours. These people do good things. They strengthen your courage, give you inner peace, and help you find your way. But there are others who do the opposite, in a way that almost no one notices. They don't argue with you, but they complain constantly. They don't say harsh things, but they don't show joy when something good happens to you. They don't say anything directly, but their lack of affection hurts more than any criticism. Little by little, they make you doubt yourself. Over time, you notice that you become more nervous, impatient, and sad. And the worst part is, this happens more and more often. We get used to living with less joy and less peace and think it's normal, but it isn't. When emotional sadness accumulates in silence, a kind of life on autopilot emerges, devoid of joy. Life stops flowing and begins to become a burden. Often we stay with certain people not because they are still good for us, but because they have been there for us for a long time. We get used to them as if they were old furniture. They haven't done anything too bad, and the thought of leaving feels wrong. So we keep going, even when our heart tells us something is wrong. We call it friendship or companionship, but in reality it isn't, because you can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. You can spend every day with someone and still feel like you're stuck in a corner inside, silently begging for help. Noise doesn't always involve shouting. Sometimes it shows up in small things, repeated annoyances, words left unspoken, feelings that remain hidden. At this point, Stoicism, an ancient philosophy, offers us an important way out. Many people think the Stoics were cold, but in reality, they believed that the most important thing was inner peace. A true Stoic doesn't allow other people's problems to dominate their mind. They learn not to get stuck in situations they can't change. Imagine a Stoic from the past, with their simple clothing and calm expression. They wouldn't let anyone ruin their life get close to them. And this isn't done out of pride, but out of wisdom. They knew that inner peace was a precious commodity, and that it was their responsibility to maintain it. Choosing the people you spend time with isn't just a social decision, it's an internal one. Stop for a moment and think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. No judgment, just watch. How do you feel after being with each of them? Do you feel calmer, braver, happier, or do you leave the conversation feeling tense, tired, or confused? This simple exercise can help you recognize things you may not have noticed before. The truth is, we often only realize how much other people influence us when we look closely. Our bodies feel, our souls whisper. We just need to pause for a moment and truly listen. 23. Learn not to react to everything. Not everything requires a response. Not every provocation deserves attention. Not every noise demands a reaction. But we live as if that were the case, as if it were our duty to respond to everything that comes our way, that bothers us, that displeases us. We live armed, on alert, ready to fire off a justification, an explanation, a defense. But is that really strength? Or is it just exhaustion disguised as vigilance? Reacting to everything means living in a constant state of war. It means giving anything or anyone the power, at any time, to take away your peace. An off-color comment, a sideways glance, a different opinion, a mistake you didn't make, an injustice, a dashed expectation. Everything becomes a trigger, everything becomes a reason, and when everything has a reason, life becomes a battlefield. But there is a deep wisdom in not respond, by recognizing, breathing, and choosing stillness, by accepting that you don't have to fix the world, convince anyone, or constantly defend yourself. You can simply watch. You can let it go. It might not be charging. You can preserve yourself, because often the cost of reacting is higher than the cost of letting go. Reacting is easy. It's instinctive. It's automatic. Reacting means surrendering the world to the rhythm of your soul. But a conscious response, or even the choice not to respond, is a choice. It's an exercise in self-control and self-love. Not reacting is an act of courage. It means resisting the temptation to be absorbed by the chaos of others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always have the power to have no opinion." This doesn't mean being indifferent. It means protecting your sanity. Not everything that comes to mind has to go in. Not every word has to echo. Not every criticism has to be hurtful. When you learn not to react, you are no longer hostage to the outside world. Imagine your mind is a house. If you react to everything, you always leave the door open. Anyone can join in. Every wind shakes things up. But if you carefully choose who you open up to, you transform this space into a sanctuary. Silence becomes a guardian, the pause becomes your greatest ally, and time gives you what haste can't: clarity. Practice this in your daily life. Is someone provoking you? Breathe. Is an assessment sufficient? Please note. Has an error occurred? Evaluate. Before you respond, ask yourself, is this really important? Does this deserve my peace? Is this my projection, or is it someone else's? These questions aren't a shield, but a filter. They separate what's worth their time from what's just trying to drain their energy. Of course, there are times when you need to act, take a stand, and defend yourself. But when you consciously choose your battles, You preserve your strength for what really matters. And the most interesting part? When you stop reacting to things, things gradually lose the power they had over you. What once destabilized you now simply passes. What once irritated you no longer reaches you. Create a ritual to practice this inner stillness. It might be a 1-minute pause before responding to a difficult message. For example, you could write down your feelings before speaking. It could be a bath, a walk, or prayer. Every space between stimulus and response is a space of power. Use it, and when you find yourself engulfed in an emotional whirlwind, repeat to yourself, "I don't have to react now." This sentence is an anchor, a reminder that you have a choice. This calm is an answer, and true control is not about controlling others, but about controlling yourself. Ultimately, non-reaction isn't passivity. It's emotional intelligence, it's strategy, it's maturity. Because while others shout, you listen. You watch the world move on. While everything requires haste, you react with presence. And in that space between impulse and reaction, the freedom to be your own boss emerges. 24. Take care of your energy the way you take care of your money. Would you check your bank statement the way you check your tiredness? Would you pay as much attention to your mental hours as you do to your spending? Because the truth is simple. Your energy is your most valuable asset, rarer than money, more irreplaceable than time, and often you give it away more easily than you should. With every involuntary yes, with every conversation that drains you, with every problem that isn't yours but that you take on as if it were, a little energy is lost. And what begins as emotional exhaustion turns into mental noise. The mind becomes clouded. The body lurches. The soul becomes tired. We live in a society where exhaustion is a medal, where being busy is a sign of relevance, where rest is confused with laziness. But there's a big difference between being busy and being at peace. And that difference starts with how you protect your energy from being wasted on unnecessary things. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you that matters, but how you react to it." This phrase applies to money, but also, and perhaps even more so, to energy. You can spend your entire day reacting to things that don't even deserve your silence. You might leave a discussion exhausted, not because of what was said, but because you approached it as if you had something to prove. Imagine your energy as an invisible bank account. You wake up with a sense of balance. Everything you do, from deciding what to wear to answering an unimportant text message, costs money. The people you spend time with are like investments. Some give you energy, others only demand emotional interest from you. And you must learn to say no, as if refusing to enter into a bad deal. Just as you learn to save money for emergencies, you also need to save energy for the difficult days. Because they will come. The difference is that those who live drained by small daily concessions have no reserves when life demands resilience. Those who have learned to manage their energy know when it's time to retreat, rest, and take a breather. Practice the absolute minimum with maximum intention. It's not about living a withdrawn life or being averse to the world, but rather acting purposefully. Seneca taught, "Life is long enough for those who know how to use it well." The same applies to your energy. It's enough if you stop wasting it on everything unnecessary. A practical suggestion: every morning when you wake up, imagine you have 100 energy coins to spend. Ask yourself, what are 10 coins worth to me today? What is worth only 1? What should get 0? This visualization changes the way you engage because it teaches you to prioritize not only tasks, but also emotions. And in the evening, review. Where did you waste energy? Who did you struggle with for nothing? What could have been avoided by keeping quiet, setting boundaries, or making a more focused decision? This little review ritual is a Stoic exercise in clarity and a powerful way to regain control of your day. But don't be too hard on yourself. There will be days when you spend everything on things you didn't want, and that's okay. The important thing is to learn. Self-care isn't about never getting tired. It's about recognizing earlier when you're drained by something that's not good for you. Conserving energy isn't selfish, it's wisdom. It means knowing that you must first be complete to be of use to the world. It's about understanding that you can't give what you don't have, that it's not an obligation to constantly sacrifice yourself to maintain the image of being available, strong, and tireless. Because in the end, no one will know exactly how much that tired smile, that forced meeting, that visit that drained your soul cost. Only you. And if you don't take care of this invisible resource called energy, no one will. So treat your energy as you would an asset you've taken a long time to build. Spend your money consciously, invest with intention, secure it firmly. Because unlike money, which can be recovered, energy spent on unimportant things rarely comes back. And an exhausted soul doesn't thrive, no matter how fertile the soil. 25. Feel the joy of writing again. Can you remember the last time you put words on paper without worrying about whether they were right or wrong, without thinking about whether anyone would read them? I'm not talking about a hastily scribbled note or a shopping list, but writing something that comes straight from your heart, without fear and without hiding. Sometimes we forget that writing isn't just a way to communicate with others. It's also a safe place where we can be honest with ourselves, a space where every word expresses a part of our thoughts and feelings. When was the last time you wrote just for yourself, without it being a school assignment, without it being a social media post, simply to find out what was going on inside you? Believe me, writing works like a mirror. It reveals truths we sometimes try to ignore. But it's these truths that set us free. When you write down what you think or feel, you might be surprised by the answers that come to you. It's like finding a hidden chest that's always been there, waiting for you. Writing has tremendous power. It not only helps you release your feelings, but also organize everything that's confusing in your head. Just ask my friend Marta. In today's world, where so much is happening simultaneously, our thoughts become a torrent that endlessly carries us away. Writing is like building a wall against this current, a way to calm the thoughts that keep flowing. This gives us a moment to reflect more calmly and understand what's going on inside us. A study conducted by Dr. James Pennebaker at the University of Texas showed that writing about our feelings can improve health, reduce stress, and even strengthen the body. When we write, we not only feel lighter, but we also begin to better identify what's bothering us. Something as simple as putting words down on paper can make a huge difference. And you don't have to be a writer to do it. Writing isn't a talent that only a few possess. It's a tool that everyone can use. Marcus Aurelius, who was also a Stoic philosopher, wrote in his notebook every day, "I did this to remind myself of what was important and to remain calm even in difficult times." He didn't write to show off to others, but to better understand himself and be at peace with his feelings. And you can do it too. Take a few minutes every day to write, without worrying about whether the words are beautiful or correct. Write for yourself as a gesture of freedom, as a sign that you value what you think and feel. Put your joys, your fears, your doubts, and your dreams on paper. Use writing as a refuge, a place where you can be completely yourself. You can start by telling us how your day was, what made you happy or sad. Let your thoughts flow onto paper, without pressure and without expecting applause. This will help you get to know yourself better and feel lighter inside. My friend, starting to write again is like opening a window in a closed room and letting the sun in. Even if the day is busy, you can always find time to sit down, grab a notebook, and let the words show you a calmer path. Your story deserves to be recorded, even if only you read it. So why not start today? Take a moment and discover the power of good writing. Ultimately, it's a way to take care of yourself and get closer to your true self. Writing isn't just about moving a pen across paper. It speaks to your heart and bridges the gap between what you feel and what you understand. It doesn't matter if what you write looks messy or if no one else reads it. What matters is that as you write, you begin to hear your own voice, the voice the world often tries to silence with so much noise. Pick up your pen, open your notebook, and get started. Because inside you, thoughts are waiting to take shape. Stories that deserve to be told, even if only to you. 26. Few friends, big impact. Imagine for a moment that your life is like a garden. You can fill it with several small plants that grow quickly, but also quickly disappear. Or you can tend to a few with deep roots that grow slowly, but remain firm even in strong winds. These days, social media seems to make having a lot of friends a sign of success, but that can be deceiving. Having a lot of people around you doesn't mean you're in good company. What really makes a difference is the quality of those friendships. Do you want a field full of sparse weeds or a garden with a few beautiful, well-tended flowers? Having fewer but real friends can change your life for the better. Now imagine a party with lots of people, loud music, and smiling faces everywhere. But have you ever felt alone even there amidst the joy? Have you ever been surrounded by people and yet felt like no one really noticed you? At this point, your heart is constricted, your mind is confused, and difficult feelings like sadness and fear arise. Believe me, many people have already been through this. Now imagine being with just one friend who really knows you. That way you don't have to pretend or invent fancy words to sound interesting. There's just peace, genuine conversations, and that good feeling of security. That's what really matters. Maybe you don't need many friends, just the ones who really make a difference in your life. Let's be honest, what's more valuable, one deep friendship or several superficial ones? Having a lot of people around you doesn't mean you'll be happier. Can I tell you something important? The answer is no. Stoic philosophers believe that a person's strength comes from good company, not from the number of people they know. It's only worth being close to those who add value to our lives. Seneca, a highly respected wise man, said we must be careful who we spend our time with. And that doesn't mean distancing ourselves from everyone, but rather giving attention to those who are truly worthy. Do you remember that quiet conversation with a special person, perhaps while gazing at the sky, or that peaceful moment in a cafe? These memories are precious. They are worth far more than any party full of empty words. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius warned us against approaching those who confuse our thoughts. He didn't want us to isolate ourselves, but only to make wise decisions. When we are with someone who understands us, our minds calm down, and everything seems clearer. These few true friendships are the pillars of our inner peace. Shallow connections only add noise and get in the way. Think honestly right now, how many of the people you spend time with today are truly influencing your mindset, your mood, or your energy? Don't be afraid of the answer. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it also sets us free. Like the roots of a tree, some people nourish us from within, while others only upset us and hinder our growth. Therefore, choose carefully who will be around you. These decisions can help you succeed or stall you. How can you put this into practice? Grab a pen and paper. Make a list of the people who support and inspire you. Spend more time with them. And set boundaries with those who cause confusion or sadness. You don't have to justify taking care of your peace. Do the people who've hurt you apologize for what they do? Most of the time they don't, so take care of yourself. Strengthen your bond with those who are worth it. Create beautiful moments with those people. Conversations, laughter, heartwarming memories. Less can be more. When you begin to value depth over quantity, everything changes. Your mind calms, your heart finds balance, and you experience a peace that once seemed distant. So don't worry about how many friends you have. What matters are the few who stay by your side through the difficult days and the happy ones. As the Stoics knew, our true strength lies in true friendships. When the noise around you stops and everything becomes quiet, only the voices that truly matter remain. The secret isn't having a lot of people around you, but having those by your side who won't let you down. A small group of sincere friends is all you need to move forward with courage and joy, so take good care of these friendships. In the simplicity of these true connections lies a richness that no number can measure.